Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at Zuuli, which is a small box drafting card game designed by Chris Prescott and published by Unfringed Limited. This one takes around 15 minutes to play and accommodates 1 to 6 players. Now before I get into my thoughts on Zuuli, I want to give a shout out to the show sponsor and place where you can pick up a copy of this game, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer when it comes to buying board games here in the UK. And if you use my link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. Okay, so the setup for a game of Zuuli is going to look like this, where you have this large deck of cards which have been well shuffled. Each player is going to get given one of these new plot cards as a starting enclosure for them to place their animals in. There's going to be a score pad which tracks the scores throughout the 3 years or rounds of the game, and of course the player with the most victory points at the end of those 3 rounds will be the winner. But more importantly, every player is going to get given a hand of cards which will vary depending on the player count. Now there's 3 different types of cards. You've got the animals, you've got the enclosures, and you also have these upgrade cards which will also kind of change the or break the rules just a little bit. Now this is a pass and draft style game where you're going to have a hand of cards, you're going to pick one of them, you're going to pass the rest onto your neighbour and repeat the process until all the cards have been drafted. Okay, so let's say I've just completed a round of drafting. Your scoring tableau in Zoo might look something like this. So basically you are trying to get these animals in their enclosures in order to score them. So the enclosures have some restrictions, the first of which is being the capacity of the animals which can stay in that. So this one has a strict capacity of 4, and it can also accommodate plains animals and water animals. And this number here is going to be the multiplier in terms of scoring. So it just so happens that I drafted this giraffe here, and it could happily go in this enclosure because the background colours match and because there's enough room in the enclosure to store it because it is a size 4 animal. So essentially this will give me 3 points, but it's going to be 3 times 1. Now you're going to start with this new plot here, which is going to have all 3 different types of habitat in there. It's going to be a times 1 multiplier. However, that one will not score unless it's full. But this elephant will go in there quite happily because, again, it can fit the terrain type and it's got the size 6 in a size 6 enclosure there. The other ones might look like this. So I have this Savannah card here with a massive capacity of 8. Now you might think, well, these can't fit in here because they're, number 1, there's more than 1 animal, and number 2, because the total value here will be 9 because it's 3 times 3. But you can see here the special rule for these lions are that the special, you get a -1 if kept with at least 1 other lion. So again, you can put more animals in smaller enclosures there. Now you can also see that these animals come with 2 different types. You've got the fierce animals or the dangerous animals, and you also have the friendly animals like the elephant here. Now friendly animals can actually go in the same enclosure provided there's enough space for them, but the dangerous animals cannot unless they are of the same type. So for example, lions can only go with lions and you cannot mix them. Now we also have one more here. We've got the grizzly bear, which is going to score me 3 points. And you can see that the value is +1 if kept alone in an enclosure. So this one's by himself in a size 3 enclosure of the matching habitat. Therefore, he is going to be eligible for scoring. Now, something that's worth mentioning is that if you end up acquiring more animals than you can actually store at the end of the round, then they're going to be worth negative points. So you're actually subtracting these values rather than adding them onto your scoring tally. Now let's take a quick look at the different animals here available. We've got the anglerfish, which is simply worth 2 points each, but they are only size 1. So if you have a big enough kind of enclosure that has water, you can put quite a few of them in. The red pandas are going to offer you 1 point each, but a +2 if kept with at least another red panda. So you can actually get bigger multipliers if you have more of them together. The jellyfish work in a similar way where the value is doubled if kept with at least 2 other jellyfish. We already talked about the grizzly bears wanting to be alone, and we have the sloths here who don't want to be alone because they're not going to be score if they are left alone. There's also these kind of upgrades you can get as well, and there's quite a few more of these, which I'm only going to talk about a few of them. Like the holding pen here means that at the end of the round, should you have a spare animal left over, you can actually carry it over to the next round, but it's not going to score, but it also means you're not going to score those negative points for not having space for them. And you've got this early access ticket here, which means that your new plot, which is the one you start with, doesn't actually need to be full in order to be scored. And the well-fed card here says that you can actually mix the animals by mixing friendly and and dangerous animals together and not have to worry about that restriction. Now that is simply how the game is going to play out over 3 rounds, but something that is important to say is that even though you have put these animals in their enclosure, they are not fixed there. So as the rounds progress, you can actually choose to completely mix them up and change the enclosures, change the coupling of the animals, etc. to get the maximum amount of points for them. And at the end of those 3 rounds, the player with the most victory points will be the winner. Okay, so let's share some thoughts on Zuuli. So I'm not going to go into tremendous detail here because this is a pretty straightforward family weight game, but I do like some of the design elements here, particularly the logical ones when it comes to acquiring animals and the enclosures, of course. So I like the fact that they two go hand in hand. You can have a bunch of enclosures, but they're not going to score you points. And vice versa, you can have a ton of animals, but you don't want too many without the enclosures because they can cost you those negative points, which is obviously not a good thing. And I like the fact that these animals do have unique rules on them. They're simple, but they are interesting enough to try and give you a little puzzle to overcome and try to, min-max everything and to try to squeeze them in the most efficient enclosures. Like, having a bunch of the same animals can be great. Having animals in isolation can be great, but you don't want them to be wasting any capacity of their enclosures. You need to be matching the right enclosures with the right animal in the first place. And it's kind of a balancing act, I suppose. You want that perfect balance of drafting the enclosures with the right animals and trying to pair those animals together to multiply your scoring. Some of the additional touches with the upgrades as well are fairly interesting. Let you break some of the traditional rules, by putting the dangerous and friendly animals together, stuff like that. And they're just like nice little design elements, which again are logical, but they make the game feel interesting. When those cards come up in your hand, you might be thinking, yeah, that's what I need right now. And I'm going to take it because that's perfect for my zoo. And I also like the flexibility of this game that once you've acquired your cards and you lay out your initial zoo in the first round, it's not locked in, it's not fixed. You do have that flexibility to move things around to try and squeeze as many points as you can and try not to lose any by having those surplus animals there. So yeah, this is what it is really. It's very nice, it's very attractive to look at, definitely going to appeal to that kind of family audience. And I would recommend this for families. It's definitely a simple and straightforward drafting game. Think of something like Sushi Go or something like that, but it's not brain dead. You do have some interesting decisions to be made here. It only takes around 15 minutes to play. It's pretty engaging and it's just a nice little package. It's relatively affordable and it's just well produced and it's good fun. I'd play this one. I'm probably not going to request to play it, but I have played it with my game group, and one of my friends said this would be perfect for me and my daughter, and they're more than welcome to it, and I know they're going to have a lot of fun playing it. So yeah, definitely if you're looking for kind of that next step to get you out of the proper childish games and want to start introducing some little conundrums, some little puzzles with restrictions, then Zuuli is a really good option, and I think it's quite a charming little package. So that is Zuuli.